What kind of person orders a bulldozer to flatten a family's home over a petty rule? That's what I asked myself when I came home to find my house reduced to rubble. My life's memories buried under broken beams and shattered glass. My name is Lena Carter, and I'd lived in Willow Grove, a quiet suburban neighborhood, for 15 years. My small, cozy house wasn't much, but it was mine, filled with my daughter's finger-painted artwork, my late husband's record collection, and the garden weeds spent years tending. The HOA, led by Karen Mitchell, had always been a thorn in my side, but I never imagined they'd go this far. It started with a letter, one of those crisp, official notices from the Willow Grove Homeowners Association. My fence, they claimed, was 3 inches too tall, a violation of their sacred bylaws. I ignored it, thinking it was just another of Karen's power trips. She was the kind of woman who'd measure your grass with a ruler and send you a fine if it was a centimeter too long. But ignoring that letter was my first mistake. 2 weeks later, I pulled into my driveway after a long shift at the hospital, where I work as a nurse, and saw the unthinkable, a bulldozer, its metal jaw tearing through my living room. Karen stood there, arms crossed, her round face smug as she barked orders at the driver. My neighbors, Tom and Sarah, stood frozen on their lawns, phones out, filming the destruction. I ran toward the wreckage, screaming, my heart pounding as I saw my daughter's old teddy bear crushed under debris. Stop! I shouted, my voice breaking. Karen turned, her eyes cold. You were warned, Lena. Rules are rules. I felt the ground shift beneath me, not just from the bulldozer's rumble, but from the betrayal of it all. How could someone do this? My home, my sanctuary, was gone, and Karen acted like it was just another Tuesday. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my car, staring at the ruins, replaying every moment I'd spent in that house. By morning, something in me hardened. I wasn't going to let Karen win. I called a lawyer, a sharp woman named Rachel who specialized in property disputes. She listened to my story, her jaw tightening as I described Karen's smug face. We're not just suing, Rachel said, her voice steady. We're going after the entire HOA board. They approved this. They're complicit. I nodded, my grief turning to resolve. Rachel dug into the HOA's records, and what she found was a goldmine. The board hadn't just acted on a whim. They'd been skimming dues for years, funneling money into personal accounts while neglecting community repairs. Karen, it turned out, had a history of bullying residents, but no one had ever fought back. The fence violation, it wasn't even in the bylaws. She'd cited just a made-up rule to flex her power. Rachel called it a pattern of abuse, and we built a case, not just for property damage, but for fraud and emotional distress. The twist came when we discovered Karen's emails. She'd written to the board, gloating about teaching Lena a lesson and joking about how my house's demolition would set an example. Those emails were our dynamite, proof of her malice. I felt a surge of vindication, but also a pang of sadness. How had this community, once so warm, turned into a battlefield? I thought of my neighbors, some of whom had quietly supported Karen out of fear. Tom and Sarah, though, stood by me, offering to testify about the day of the demolition. Their courage gave me hope, but I knew the fight was far from over. As we prepared for court, Karen doubled down. She started a smear campaign, spreading rumors that I was a deadbeat who'd neglected my property. At a community meeting, she stood at the podium, her voice dripping with false sympathy. Lena's house was an eyesore, she said, her eyes glinting. We did what was best for Willow Grove. I sat in the back, my hands shaking, but Rachel squeezed my arm. Let her talk, she whispered. She's digging her own grave. The courtroom loomed like a storm cloud. On the day of the trial, I walked in, my heart racing but my head high. Karen sat with the HOA board, her usual swagger replaced by a nervous twitch. The judge, a no-nonsense woman with sharp eyes, called the case to order. Rachel presented our evidence, the fraudulent financial records, the emails, the photos of my ruined home. Tom and Sarah took the stand, their voices steady as they described Karen's glee as the bulldozer tore through my life. The room grew heavy with tension, every word a brick in the wall we were building against her. Then came the moment I'd been waiting for, Karen's testimony. She took the stand, her face flushed, her answers clipped. Rachel didn't hold back. Ms. Mitchell, she asked, her voice like a blade. Did you personally order the demolition of Ms. Carter's home without proper authorization? Karen stammered, her confidence crumbling. Two was enforcing the rules, she said, but the judge's frown deepened. The truth was unraveling, and Karen couldn't stop it. The board members, sweating in their suits, tried to distance themselves, but Rachel pinned them down with evidence of their complicity. The courtroom felt electric, every eye on the collapsing empire of Willow Grove's HOA. By the time the judge recessed, I could see it in Karen's eyes. She knew she'd lost. The trial stretched into days, each one peeling back another layer of Karen's reign. The twist deepened when a former board member, guilt-ridden, came forward with a recording of Karen pressuring them to approve the demolition. If we don't act, she'd said, her voice cold on the tape, people will think they can ignore us. That recording was the final nail, played in court to gasps from the gallery. I watched Karen's face drain of color, her hands gripping the table as if it could save her. The judge's verdict came like a thunderclap. The HOA was liable for millions in damages, and Karen and the board faced criminal charges for fraud and unlawful destruction of property. The image of them being led out of the courtroom in handcuffs burned into my mind. Karen, once so untouchable, looked small, her bravado gone as she shuffled toward the exit. The board members followed, heads bowed, their authority reduced to nothing. My house was gone, but so was their power. I won, but victory felt hollow at first. I stood in the courtroom, surrounded by supporters, yet all I could think about was the home I'd lost. Rachel pulled me aside, her eyes kind but firm. This isn't just about you, Lena, she said. You've given this community a chance to start over. She was right. The aftermath was chaotic but hopeful. Willow Grove held an emergency election, and new board members, people like Tom and Sarah, who cared about fairness, stepped up. The neighborhood began to heal, with residents coming together to rebuild trust. I used the settlement money to buy a small cottage nearby, and my daughter and I planted a new garden, a symbol of starting fresh. But the real triumph wasn't the money or the new house. It was the spark I saw in my neighbor's eyes, the courage to stand up to bullies like Karen. I started speaking at community meetings, sharing my story, urging others to fight for what's right. One evening, as I spoke to a packed room, a young woman approached me, tears in her eyes. I was afraid to challenge my HOA, she said, but you showed me it's possible. I hugged her, my heart full. My loss had become a beacon, a reminder that even in the face of destruction, you can rebuild not just homes, but communities, hope, and justice. I'd never get back the house I'd loved, But I gained something greater, a voice that echoed beyond Willow Grove, inspiring others to stand tall. And as I walked through my new garden, the scent of fresh earth grounding me, I knew I'd turned pain into purpose. And